2023 through 2025 State of Black Los Angeles County Report is a biennial, online, and interactive report that includes multiple in-depth chapters with extensive research and data on how Black Angelenos and their counterparts are faring throughout the county across multiple life outcomes. It includes both quantitative and qualitative data on the lived experience of Black Angelenos collected through interviews, focus groups, and listening sessions. And this year, we've expanded the report's usefulness for county departments and the public by adding a mapped inventory of county programs and services linked to domain areas such as health, education, housing, and the like. We have specific chapters that allow individuals to go and read about where there may be a challenge that they're facing and find the corresponding county-sponsored program to address that challenge. We've added video stories of Black Angelenos, and we've updated our interactive maps with 3D locations of sites of importance to Black Los Angeles County, as well as expanded our availability of data to over 120 indicators. We are proud to have partnered with Dr. Shea Crowder and the Center for the Study of Los Angeles at Loyola Marymount University to produce this year's report. LMU served as incredible partners, gathering data and assisting with the analysis. Now let's briefly cover the data. For this year's progress report, we performed a trends analysis which compared data from the first year's report to this year's second report. Now the data varies in year to year and was collected and reported based on available aggregated census, state, and de-identified administrative data from county departments. What this slide shows are a few highlights related to Black life expectancy, which decreased by 1.6 years between 2020 and 2021. There was an increase in the number of people experiencing homelessness from 19,552, which is about 30% of the homeless population, to 22,606, which went up to 32% of the homeless population from 2022 to 2023, and an increase in the percentage of Black households at 200% of the federal poverty level, or less, by 7 percentage points. Now, one of the special highlights of this report, as I mentioned earlier, is that there are a number of county programs and initiatives that can help serve and address these outcomes, not just for Black Angelenos, but all residents here in LA County. Listed below the data are programs that respond to a wide array of needs ranging from housing to health to caregiving. Now, while none of these programs are exclusive to African American residents, and they do serve all Angelenos, what this shows us is that these programs are especially helpful to specific communities because of the needs that exist and the needs that they have. Next, what our analysis also revealed were two bright spots. What we did see was an increase in high school graduation from 75.7% to 82.1% from 2019 to 2023, and an increase in the median household income from $51,259 to $59,000. Now, unfortunately, the data also show that between year 1 and year 2 of the report, there was also a significant increase in the rates of chronic absenteeism among Black students. You might be wondering, why did these numbers increase or why did they go down? Well, significant investments from COVID and during the pandemic years provided opportunities through tutoring programs and other academic supports to enable not only Black students, but all students in LA County to stay in school and get through graduation. We also saw an increase in household median income as our economy improved, but we began to see a rise in inflation, which has also depressed economic opportunity for and buying power for many of our families. Next, let's talk about Black aging and caregiving. In May of this year, the board adopted a motion sponsored by Supervisor Mitchell proclaiming the third Saturday in May as Black Elders Appreciation Day. The motion further directed CEO Artie to add a new chapter to the State of Black Los Angeles County report, which we're now calling Black Aging and Caregiving. While the chapter is forthcoming, we have initiated a preliminary identification of outcomes and analysis of the data. The chapter will examine outcomes for Black adults over 50 years old, which include rates of receiving caregiving, providing caregiving, poverty, homelessness, disability, and more. What our preliminary data shows on the older Black population is that older Black people represented the largest percentage of the homeless population over 55. And Black people over the age of 65 years old had the second highest percentage of people with a disability. Black people made up 27.2% of people who provided care or assistance to an adult who is aging or has a long-term illness or disability in the last month, which is over 27.2%, the largest percent of this population. Now, one of the key efforts involved in the creation of this report included extensive community outreach and engagement, where we interviewed over 24 civic leaders, held 5 focus groups, conducted 7 listening sessions with youth, consulted with 12 local academic experts, consulted with 5 county departments and entities on metrics, areas of focus, and leveraged data from Loyola Marymount University's annual survey of county residents, with more than 2,000 respondents, of which 350 were Black Angelenos. We also partnered with the LA Urban League, the Los Angeles Urban League, to launch a report at the State of Black Los Angeles event at the University of Southern California, and conducted over 4,500 research hours to arrive at 3 primary recommendations driven by community feedback. The first of which, as you see here, is to encourage the county to adopt a targeted universalism framework as a primary policy approach and approach to developing programs. Now, targeted universalism is defined as setting universal goals for all populations to solve complex problems for everyone throughout the region, and tailor those goals and activities to specific populations based on their need, geography, and other related factors accounting for differing circumstances. What targeting universalism does is it enables us to develop and align existing strategies into a coherent and unified approach that leverages our resources to help create thriving communities for all and fight against unlawful discrimination. Now, here's some of the ways CEO is working to advance targeting universalism in and throughout the county. Through our partnership with the Homeless Initiative, RD and HI have worked to adopt this framework by conducting a retrospective analysis of Measure H spending priorities and identify how they're aligned or did not align to reduce disparities in homelessness. This analysis will be made available to the public to increase transparency by the end of this summer. And not only that, CEO, HI, and RD also partnered to fund and implement the recommendations of the Ad Hoc Committee on Black People Experiencing Homelessness, the American Indian Alaska Native recommendations that were put forward by the Homeless Initiative, and the forthcoming Latinx Experiencing Homelessness recommendations. Additionally, we partnered on Measure A as co-chairs alongside LAHSA to host the Equity Subcommittee at the Leadership Table for Homelessness Alignment. In that space, we developed a set of metrics to enable the adoption of a targeted universalism framework based on critical populations identified in Measure A ballot language. And finally, RD worked with the Department of Public Works on their equity and infrastructure framework, which considers targeting universalism as a principle in the development of the framework, and have worked to support a feedback loop between the community and Public Works in its efforts to advance equity and infrastructure. Now, for the second recommendation, residents asked that the county focus on repairing harm and expanding access. Many community members shared that in order to improve Black outcomes, there needed to be accountability for past and present harms inflicted on communities through damaging, demeaning, and dehumanizing policies and practices, many of which have been on full display this year. Examples of how we're doing this in the county include through the board's directed motion to explore and study reparations, which is examining possible steps that we can take here as a county to address inequities, disparities, and disproportionality caused by harmful policies of the past. Further, through your board's approval and adoption of our Racial Equity Strategic Plan in 2023, I'm pleased to share that over 20% of our plan is underway and is being implemented throughout the entire county. Our 5 primary goals will benefit all Angelenos by creating and enabling an environment that focuses on thriving and improvements in life outcomes. And finally, our residents ask that the board advance efforts to decriminalize mobility and advance mobility justice. RD continues to work with the Sheriff's Department to identify and make available bicycle stop data, and with Public Works to incorporate strategies to strengthen access through mobility planning. For our third and final recommendation, residents called for an increase in mobile services. Many residents often elevated the need to access services where they live and not just go to central locations. In places like the Antelope Valley, residents often found themselves without effective transportation to get to or from a county office to take advantage of healthcare, counseling, educational, and/or career services due to a disability, health, and/or safety concerns. While this is true for the AV, it's also the case for so many neighborhoods like South Los Angeles or Pomona or East Los Angeles and throughout the entire region. We would be encouraged to explore ways to strengthen the delivery of programs and services, meeting people where they're most in need. For example, the Department of Health Services, through their mobile clinic program, is providing comprehensive medical care and behavioral health care to unsheltered people experiencing homelessness, which includes outreach to the most marginalized encampments, parks, drop-in centers, and select interim housing sites. The Department of Mental Health has the Homeless Outreach and Mobile Engagement Program, providing field-based outreach, engagement support, and treatment to adults ages 18 and over with severe and persistent mental illness experiencing unsheltered homelessness. Thankfully, our Aging and Disabilities Department is providing home-delivered meals, which provides nutritious meals to adults age 60 and over, and individuals with disabilities at home up to 5 days a week. Now, each of these recommendations represent an opportunity to advance the county's goal and vision for equity to help all residents experience good health, justice, and thrive. Now, as I've spoken with many of your offices, you've asked, how will this report be used to assist county departments? To that question, I say that this and future State of reports will focus on accountability. In order to facilitate accountability and show the departments are having an impact year after year, RD will roll out a series of webinars and tutorials on how to use this report as a tool to inform program designs, their reporting mechanisms, and service delivery. We will also expand this report by developing a freestanding data and mapping tool similar to the Equity Explorer, where departments and members of the public can see the data and outcomes overlaid by neighborhood, thereby understanding how to best align resources where there is most need. Now, these efforts will also be bolstered by the census alignment work through a motion sponsored by Supervisor Solis, which will allow the county to improve the aggregation and disaggregation of administrative data across departments, enabling better collection, aggregation, and tracking of programmatic data throughout the county. Our departments collect race and ethnicity data differently, and so we have to standardize that data collection so that we can talk about our programs in a similar fashion. As we work with our county departments to report on the progress achieved towards implementing our racial equity strategic plan, we'll also collect data to let us know if we're moving the needle on outcomes and disparities featured in this report. As I prepare to close, I want to give special attention to this issue of immigration, one that is incredibly important and has been elevated, especially in light of recent actions by our federal government. This progress report and update arrives amid sweeping national, legal, economic, and social shifts that are destabilizing and harming communities across LA County, especially those already facing marginalization. The past 6 months have underscored the urgency of the need for unity and solidarity across racial, ethnic, gender, geographic, and any other line that may be drawn against us and or for us. I truly believe that we are in a moment that calls on us to push past the illusions of division and to stand in support of all Angelenos, regardless of their immigration status, racial and or ethnic background, sexual orientation, or the like. Communities including Black, Latino, Asian, immigrant, LGBTQIA+, older adults, and residents of rural regions face heightened vulnerabilities, not just due to economic stress and limited access to services, but because of targeted policies that erode dignity, safety, and belonging. For example, we know in Black immigrant communities, often overlooked in immigration discourse, they're among some of the most affected by current policies. Los Angeles County is home to the largest Black immigrant population in California. According to the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, BAJI, while Black immigrants represent just 5% of the undocumented population, they account for up to 20% of those targeted for deportation, a consequence of anti-Black racism that extends into immigration enforcement and detention systems. These same forces also endanger Latinx, trans individuals, older adults, low-income residents, and those reliant on federally funded health and safety net programs. The acknowledgement of the ways in which our communities are experiencing harms right now can inform how we collaborate not just to defend our rights, but advance a democracy for human flourishing. The State of Black Los Angeles County report is not just an accounting of disparities, It is a representation of how data can be used to support cross-group solidarity and shared action to preserve and protect the dignity and well-being of all Angelenos, regardless of their race, gender, sexual orientation, or immigration status. As I close today, I want to thank the board for believing in and investing in ARDI and all of the work that we're doing across the entire county, as well as each department that's committed to advancing equity. I also want to acknowledge that CEO ARDI has taken up your charge to increase the availability of and reporting on data to develop policy recommendations for all Angelenos. These include other directives to develop next year's State of Black Los Angeles County Report, our third edition, coming in 2026, a State of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander report sponsored by Supervisor Horvath's office, coming in 2026, a State of Latinidad report sponsored by Supervisor Solis's office, coming in 2026, an Antelope Valley Equity Office, Antelope Valley Equity Atlas sponsored by Supervisor Barger's office, coming this year, as well as efforts to prevent identity-based hate and violence with a special focus on combating anti-Semitism and anti-LGBTQ+ hate, supported and sponsored both by Supervisors Mitchell and Horvath, as well as developing an American Indian Alaskan Native experiencing homelessness dashboard to increase transparency around the needs of our Native American homeless population here in and throughout the county. CEO ARDI looks forward to continuing to work with your board as well as departments to advance a policy agenda that fights against bias and discrimination in all of its forms, and I look forward to your questions today. That concludes our presentation.